Hi, welcome to Allbrands After Hours with me, Courtney Douthat. Welcome to the show where we hang out and craft together. Today we'll be incorporating embroidery with our Brother ScanNCut. Let's do it. That's right, you heard me. We are going to be incorporating the Brother ScanNCut with embroidery. Now, I have this really pretty white fabric right here, and I don't know if you can see, it has like a light design to it. And I'm actually going to make the Brother ScanNCut cut out this fabric to make a pretty bow, just a very nice, delicate bow. And I'm going to have it draw on water-soluble stabilizer a pretty floral design so I can put it on the tails of the bow. I have a whole vision, so we're gonna do it together. We're gonna do this project from start to finish together. I'm so sorry if last week's video was so short. I didn't realize it was gonna be that short of a video, so this will make up for that. So if you like long videos, hey, if you don't, I'm sorry, still watching. So let's jump into it. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to make a bow pattern from scratch. I'm gonna have the machine make it for me. I'm going to actually come to pattern, shapes, and I want to get a square. And I'm gonna go ahead and hit set on this, and I'll change the size of it, but I want to get all my pieces together. I'm gonna hit add, pattern, shapes, and now I want to get a rectangle, which granted I could make that square into a rectangle, but I'm gonna say I want this rectangle. Again, I'm not picking sides. The sizes right now. I just want to be able to just grab my designs. All right, add, pattern, shapes, and this time I want, I think it's called a rhombus. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I want this one right here. Okay, and set. Now these are all the pieces to my bow. Well, Courtney, that doesn't look like a bow right now. Well, no, because we're gonna sew it together, but let's go ahead and get our sizes down. Now let's start with our square. So if I come to edit, object edit, and resize. Now, whenever the ScanNCut wants to resize something, if I was to select to resize up or down, it's going to do it all together like breathing. So all together, you see if I'm selecting that width, that height's going. If I'm selecting that height, that width's going. If I was to select this right here, it would lock it. So now it's only going to size one of them at a time. So if I select the width's going to go. If I select the height, then the height's going to go, and vice versa. So what I'm going to do is, I've actually made this a few times. I make bows all the times for my nieces and things like that. So I know about roughly how big I want my bow. And I don't actually want a perfect square. So I want this to be a fairly large bow. So I know that my width probably needs to be a little more than half. So I'm going to keep it selected where it's only going to do one. And I'm going to up this. So this one, I know that I want this to be, again, fairly large. So I'm going to make sure that the width of this is about 11.5. So we're going to hit resize, and I'm going to go ahead and tell it to bring that width open to 11.5. Oh, that's perfect because that's as big as I can go. I actually need to come down just a little bit. And now I know that I want the height of this to be about 2.5. So it's actually taller than what I would want it. So I'm going to shrink down. Ooh. But I need to make sure that I lock this because I want my 11.5. So I'm going to lock it, come down to a 2.5. And again, I've just worked with so many different bow patterns that I know that these are kind of the measurements that I like. There are tons of free patterns out there or ones on that you can buy of different bows, but these are just the measurements that I like for my particular bows. So I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to add, make 2 of those for my bow, and now there's my second one. Now, looking at this, I think I'm going to have to do that second piece on a separate mat, unless I brought out my 12x24 mat, then I could do them all together. But I don't currently have a fabric mat that is a 12x24. Brother, please give us a fabric mat that is a 12x24. Please. We would love that. So I'm going to have to do it on my 12x12. All right, so let's select that piece right there, and I'm actually going to delete it out just so I can go ahead and cut these pieces out, and then I'll do a second one with that one. Alrighty, so we've got the tails of our bow, we've got the base of our bow, the big part, and then we'll do the center in just a bit. So let's go ahead and we're going to select OK. OK again, please select and cut. Now, the blade that we're going to use is, of course, the rotary blade. You can, of course, use, grab it, your fabric blade. If you have your fabric blade, you can use this. This is just a plain cotton material, so the fabric blade will do us just fine. However, I do love the rotary blade, so I usually reach for this one. The biggest difference between these, if you haven't seen our previous videos, is that this is like your fabric scissors. There's a little blade in there. Those are your fabric scissors. This is a rotary blade. So it's kind of the same concept. When would you want to use a rotary blade? When would you want to use your fabric scissors? The rotary blade was made for more difficult fabric, but I honestly, I kind of go to her more than I go to my fabric scissors. So it's up to you which one you prefer, but I'm going to use my rotary for this case. Alrighty, so I have my fabric mat here because we're going to be cutting, of course, fabric out. And I've got my rotary blade in there as the blade that I'm going to use. Now I have these pieces of fabric right here. These are just extra scraps of this white material that I had that I thought would be really pretty for like a little linen-y, you know, cotton bow. So I'm going to stick this. Now Courtney, those aren't full sizes. That is just little sheets. I think they're like a 12x6 little bits. Yeah, I use up every little piece that I possibly have. I'm going to use it on my machine because my machine can cut out such detailed things. Why waste material? Especially if you're an applicator, you know that little piece of fabric could be, if you're doing Christmas things, like it could be the snowman's eyes or his little buttons or, you know, so many little bits. So I keep a lot of my bits. I keep them organized so it doesn't feel overwhelming, or when my husband comes into my sewing room, he doesn't have a cow. So keeping it very organized. All right, so we've got our fabric on here. Nothing special. I'll just put it on here. If you want to grab Corey. If you want to grab your brayer, your Brother brayer, you can go ahead and just bray that fabric on there. My mat is pretty sticky because I just cleaned it. So it has pretty good stick to it, so I don't feel like I need to really bray it on there. But if your mat's losing stickiness or it's time to clean it, then go ahead, use your brayer. So it's on there now. So let's go ahead and let's load it into our machine. Alrighty, so now we could scan in our material to be able to see the background of it. However, I mean, I know it's on there. It's on the whole mat. It'll be fine. So let's go ahead and we are going to hit start. So the machine is coming down, the blade's coming down. It's testing how deep that material is. And there she goes. Now with the rotary blade, she can do the 3mm thickness that the ScanNCut can do, but she is a little special. She's just running all over the place. I love it. She is a little special where she likes to find you the best cut, and she's going to do it at a 1mm thickness. So I usually tell people if it's a thick material, just check that it cut through all the way because you might have to run it one more time. However, I don't mind doing that because she gives such a great cut. She is going. Look at she's off to the races. I'm staying out of your way, ma'am. Now, while she's cutting out, I always remind you guys about different events, and we did sell out of Lone Star University. There might be, you're done. There might be additional spots opening up, so add yourself to the wait list that's on there, because again, you might be able to join the wait list if we do open more spots. Right now, we're not sure if we're going to be able to, but we will if we can. So join the wait list to possibly get a spot for Lone Star. I'm going to be good and use my spatula tool to easily get fabric off of my mat. Because I didn't treat this fabric. This is 100% just cotton material. Nothing treated, not even Material Magic, nothing. Nothing is on this fabric. So, I love it. Courtney, use your spatula. I get so excited, I just start pulling at things. Oh, it's a bad habit. Okay. Oh my gosh, it came out so good. And you know what? If you were doing this as a business, I saw someone in one comment, one of the comments of the last video, asking me if they can sell the things that they cut on their ScanNCut. Absolutely, you can sell it. So this pattern I just made off the top of my head, and I knew about how big I wanted my measurements to be. So I could sell this. If you are buying a pattern from someone, you need to make sure that they're okay with you selling their items and it's not personal use. If the pattern was just for personal use, then no, don't sell it. But if you created the pattern or you have permission from whoever created it to sell items, then yeah, you can sell everything, you know, anything at all that you make. All right, there's one of our pieces. Cute, cute, cute. All right, put that right here. And Courtney, where'd your spatula go? I'm just going to come to the corner and ease up this material. I think if I was doing this again, I probably would hit it with a little bit of Material Magic, so I wouldn't have to be so careful getting it off my sticky mat, but like it's coming off fine. Okay, now that we have all of our pieces, I'm gonna show you how to make the center part of our bow, because remember we haven't cut that out yet. Alrighty, so we're gonna hit okay. Now, if you wanted to, you could come back and you could save this for other bows, so that way you don't have to make this pattern again. You just keep having it. But I'm gonna actually come home and I'm going to grab that rectangle from earlier, and then we're gonna go ahead and size it. I know that I want the width of mine to be about a little under 1.5 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and make that width under, let's say about here. And then I'm going to lock it and make my height be a little, probably like a 3 1/4. Oh, went too far. There we go. There we go. Hit set. There they are, perfectly on our mat. So we can go ahead and cut those out too. Before I stitch my bow together, it would be so much easier to hand sew on it while it's in pieces than whenever it's together, because if I do it this way, all the stitches will be inside of the bow. So if you even flip the bow over, there wouldn't be any stitches. So I actually like this idea. It makes it very versatile. So I grabbed my exquisite adhesive sew-and wash. So this has got adhesive backing onto it. It's not like a heat one, so I'm not ironing anything down. It's just got a sticky backing to it that won't hurt my fabric, that I can put on here and be able to hand stitch a pretty embroidery design and then dunk it in water. and then all the stabilizer goes away and it just leaves my beautiful hand stitched design. So I like to use this and to create a template on this, have my ScanNCut draw it for me, and then that way I can put it on anything, and I can just how we were talking about in the last video, I've done collars where I've put it on collars to have a pretty embroidered collar. I've done it on shoes. That way I can have a pretty design on a shoe and be able to hand stitch there. So I don't freestyle my hand embroidery. Some people are amazing, can do that. If it's super simple, maybe, but this is so much easier. And I've also been, I'm going on a tangent, I've also had my ScanNCut draw in cursive on here, and then that way I could put a hand stitched cursive design. I've done it on bows too, on the tail of the bow, a cursive design. It comes out so pretty. So anyways, this is what I use, and I got a new roll just to show this. That way I didn't have to show my roll that's very used and abused. So let's go ahead and let's make a design to put on our bow. Okay, so let's go to patterns. I'm thinking more floral. I feel a floral design would be nice, but we of course have any shape that we can bring in. And you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to put this back onto my mat. I changed the size. Let me change the size back. And I'm actually going to make this bigger. So I'm actually going to put one of these on there. That way I can put my designs in it and I can kind of see a little bit better. So I think it was a 2.5, just because I'm a visual person. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna set that on my mat, hit add, and then go to pattern. I think let's go here, maybe here, because I know some of my floral designs are in here. So if I wanted to add little flowers or anything, oh, you could even do seasonal snowflakes. Oh my gosh, that's so precious. Oh, these are cute. If I want to add any of these or these leaves. Oh, the sunflower is precious. I bet it did in multiple colors. Let's see, let's go to here. These are, ooh, if we added like little scallops to it, made it like very regal looking. Okay, we're getting inside. This is the fun creative part of it all, that you get to get your ideas together. And of course you can bring in outside images, scan them into your machine, or if you have a design already, you can of course put it into the ScanNCut for you, but I just want to build something off of the machine. The machine has built-in letters. So if I wanted to do any of the letters, I could do that with whatever initial. If I come down, there's additional letters if I wanted to do that. Oh, the Greek letters for sororities. How cute would that be? Oh, that would be cute. to hand embroider that, have the machine do an outline for that so you can hand embroider it, that would be cute. See, there's so many designs. So I'm gonna actually play around to create a little design to go on there. And of course, if you don't want to do it by fingers, you can come here to your directional keys right there and be able to move it that way too. Bit. Remember to leave your 1/4 inch seam allowance. Oh, you know what? I just had an idea. So we can take this, and I should have had the machine draw my 1/4 inch seam allowance on my fabric. Let's go ahead. We've got our tail selected, and let's go ahead and tell it to add a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Look at that. Boom. Now, whenever I've got, and it's telling me, hey, you're going to go to a 12 by 20 format, which is fine. We've already cut out our pieces, but it is letting me know this way it's encroaching on it. So now you've got your outer line and your inner line. Your inner line is your drawing line. The outer line is your cut line. So now we know exactly where that 1/4 inch seam allowance is going to be. So we know how far we need to keep it from the edge. Oh, I love that. All right, so let's select, edit. Here we go. And if it's hard for you to select something, you can always use this to select instead. Now I know that this actually needs to go over just a bit. Okay, we're getting somewhere. I'm loving this. And we could even put an initial in there. Or you could bring an initial in and fill it in and then take the initial away so it's just the flower outline. Oh, that would have been cute. Okay, we have ideas. Okay, loving that. Now I feel like that's going really well. I'm loving this floral design, but of course we can zoom in up to 400%. 400% to be able to see even closer. These keys are going to move where you're at on your mat. There we go. These keys are going to actually move what the design is. So if I selected this, I can move it with this. And that is going to be so precious. I might add a few bits later, but I think this is a good starting point for me. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. I'm going to actually, right now the big part is selected. So I'm actually going to trash. I know it feels wrong. I'm going to come to here for all the select all, everything on my mat, hit OK, object edit, and then we're going to wield them all together. So now they're one piece, like one applique piece, and that's so cool. All right, so we're going to hit OK. Now I'm not going to need a very big area, pretty small design, so I'm only going to cut out a small piece of this, and we can always cut it down afterwards if we wanted to. There we go. I am just ripping apart this thing. And of course I'll have all of the things that I use, like stabilizer, linked down below. I link everything for every show. I'm going to keep this part to know which stabilizer this is. But I always link everything for the shows, that way you guys don't have to search all over. If it's things that Allbrands carries. If it's things that Allbrands doesn't carry, I can't link them. But if it is things that Allbrands can carry, I will link them for you down below. I think it's under products used or product something. All right. Now, oh, this is exciting. This is exciting. This is exciting. I'm gonna keep this. Okay. So, oh, it feels so cool. So this has a paper backing to it. And then it's got the stabilizer, because that paper backing is what's currently covering the sticky part of this, because it's an adhesive. So I'm just going to cut a random piece. Okay. Now, since it has a paper backing on it, I'm going to use my blue low tack mat to be able to draw. I'm going to take the paper side of my stabilizer and put it down on there. Use my brayer to brayer it on down. There we go. All right, now let's go ahead and load it into our machine. Alrighty, now of course you can scan in what's on your mat and you can see it on screen what is on there. But since I kind of know where mine is, and it's not going to go any bigger than that, I'm just going to place it. Okay. Okay, again. Now, before we do anything, we have to take out our blade we were using because we don't want to cut this, we want to draw this. So I'm going to take the pen holder that comes with your machine. If you open it up, click the back right here. There we go. It opens up, and I'm going to take the water-soluble pen that comes with this. This is water-soluble. They have an air-soluble pen that's purple, and then your blue water-soluble. Now, why do I want to use my blue water-soluble? Well, I know I'm going to dunk this in water to get rid of the stabilizer. So might as well do two birds, one stone kind of thing. So there we go. Plus, if it takes me a little while to stitch it out, if I do it off and on and stuff like that, like, you know, at night before I go to bed or something, well, the air-soluble is going to go away over time. The water soluble is not going to go away until I decide it goes away. So there we go. You're going to put it in your machine just like you do with any of the blades. Just slip it on down and lock it in. All right, so we're going to please select. In this case, we want to draw. There we go. And hit start. She's going to come around. She's going to draw on our stabilizer. How cool is that? Look at it go. Oh, it comes out so well, that blue on the white, so I can see it really well when I'm hand sewing. I appreciate that. It's the little things in my life that get me. Now, I could have put an image around this so that way it would cut right after this for me, but I didn't. I thought this would be fine. I could just cut it. There you go. How cool is that? Now it's drawn it out for me, so now I have a pretty little template that I can use to stitch on things. All right, so we're done with our mat. Let's go ahead and put her over there. We'll deal with that later. Let's take their tail. So now we have to decide which tail do we want it on. So if it's bunched up like this, back of my head, I want it on this side. So I'll put it on this side of the tail. All right, now I'm gonna take my scissors. Where do I put scissors? Take my scissors, and I'm actually going to cut around the design. Editing Courtney here. In hindsight, I wish I wouldn't have cut around this design because when I hooped it, I really didn't have much to hoop around, and it kind of made it a little bit harder to hand embroider on it. So I wouldn't cut this. I would actually leave it the size it is to make it easier to hoop. And while I got you, we reached 12,000 subscribers. Woo! Thank you guys so much for 12,000. And next week's video will be a live video, so make sure you're there 7 o'clock Saturday for a live video with me. So I cut around the design, and I'm going to unpeel it. So take off that paper backing off the back of it so I can get the sticky part. There we go. So now it's like a sticker. Okay, take our tail, and I'm going to position this on our tail. And the nice part is you can kind of see through the stabilizer, so you can see where you're putting things. Now remember, 1/4 inch seam allowance. There we go. So I've kind of stuck it to our stabilizer. The cameras really are drowning this out. Let me put it on the other camera. Alrighty. So now I've put it on there. If you see, it's got a little bit of an edge to it. And you know, I could have even scooted it over, and I might. Or you know what? I might go back and add little designs right here to kind of fill in this area if I wanted to. But this is just a template to get me going. Okay, so I've got these out. Now this little rubber thing is kind of my favorite thing when I hand sew. It's like a rubbery grip. I've tried thimbles, and I feel like thimbles, I feel awkward and they don't quite go great on my hands. So when you're sewing a thick material or going through multiple layers or using a really thick thread, it's kind of hard to pull it through sometimes. So I like this little foamy bit, or not foamy, it's silicone-y bit, because I can put this in between my fingers, grab my needle, and pull as hard as I can to get it through. Not hard as I can, but you know what I mean. So I like this, and I'll link everything down below. So I have my needles, and I'll link the ones I use. I've got these right here. So this is my hoop. So what I can do is I can actually put my hoop in there. And I wish I had my smaller hoop. Of course, I leave things at home. So I can actually hoop this to be able to hand stitch it. Now, if I was smart, before I cut out my material, I would have just had this on there, and then that way it would have cut it out afterwards, you know, exactly where I wanted it to be. Didn't think that far, so, oh well. Would have made it a lot easier just to hoop a big piece of fabric than trying to hoop the small one. All right, so you wanted a little taut in there. I know, Courtney, that's so weird. You're not hooping things in this area. I don't. So you wanted a little taut just so it has a little, what are they? It feels like a drum. It's not super, super tight, but it has a little drum to it. So I think I've picked out my colors. Yeah. So I think this there, and yeah, okay. I think once I start sewing it, I can always change colors, switch however I want. So, all right, let's get my needle going. Now, I don't claim to be an expert on hand sewing, but these are a few of the stitches that I used while I was making this, which is the satin stitch, the back stitch, the French knot, and the running stitch. There are tons of videos on YouTube that show this way more in detail, but these are the ones that I'm using. Now for the majority of this design, I did just use the satin stitch for the leaves and the flowers, except where you kind of see where it's more of a viney thing than I did a back stitch. And then the little bitty flowers, I did rosettes that were super easy to do, or French knots as they're called. In the back. Now a lot of hand sewing people will incorporate that tail into the design on the back. That way they don't have to tie off. This is going to be a hair bow. This is going to be on someone, probably my head, moving around a ton and stuff like that. And if I'm doing it on a piece of clothing, I definitely make sure that I hand tie things because, let me do some more of the pink. Hand tie things because it's going in the wash. And I don't want it to accidentally slip out. So I tie off the beginning and I tie off the end. I don't know if that's the correct way to do it, but that's how I do it. I'd rather give some insurance and tie it off, you know, making a little knot at the beginning and on the back to know that it's secure on there. Like I said, a lot of people, they just incorporate the tail into the back of the design, but I don't do that. I think it's better to tie it off. Okay. And I have a pretty thick piece on it. Most of them, except the purple and the yellow, I have 3 strands, because whenever you buy hand embroidery thread, a lot of times it's 6 strands, so you can divide it to have a thinner line to do like a 3 strand or whatever you prefer. If you keep all 6, then it's a little bit chunkier. So I did the purple as a 6 strand, and the yellow as a 6 strand, but the rest of them are 3 strands. So I am just going to do a giant rosette right here because I feel like rosettes are the easiest thing for me to do. So I'm putting my needle down, wrapping thread around it, and then going right to the bottom. There we go. And pull through. Well, no judging the back of my design. Okay, what do we think? Oh my gosh, it's so cute. Unhook this one, or unhoop this one. Oh, I'm so excited. There we go. It's so cute. Alright, so I'm going to take our little design and I'm going to actually put it in a little bowl of water. I found that it is a little bit easier to do it with running water under like a sink or something, but a bowl of water will do just fine. So I'm rubbing my fingers very lightly over it, and at first I started at the top, but then I realized no, I need to do it on the back where the actual stabilizer was. And again, I'm just rubbing my fingers lightly over it just to kind of get it all off. I've noticed that if you do it in running water, I feel like it's less stiff at the end. I guess it gets more of it out. So I kind of would recommend doing it under running water instead of a bowl of water like I'm doing here. But it did come out beautifully. And then I just laid mine outside on our picnic table to dry, and it dried beautifully. Now let's go ahead and let's get our stuff together so we can actually sew our bow together. So first thing we're going to do to make our bow is we're going to do embroidered side facing us, so embroidered side up, and we're going to take the other piece of our fabric and put it down on top of it where you don't see the embroidery. We're going to line them up, and then we're going to stitch all the way around. So let's see, I need to get wonder clips to hold this thing together. So we're going to stitch, so this way, all the way around, leaving about a 2-inch or an inch gap right here on the top. So all the way around, leaving that gap. right, so we're gonna flip that back out. And I'm going to go ahead and take my little hand iron, and I'm going to go ahead and iron this out because dear goodness it got wrinkled. But I'm going to make sure to pay extra close attention to where we had that little opening that we had left open, because I want to press that down. So when I do go ahead and sew it closed right here, I have a nice finished edge on it. All right, so let's work on the main part of the bow. I'm going to make a 1/4 inch little fold in and go ahead and press that down too to make a very nice edge for the main part of our bow. If you notice, I do have a stitch in the middle of this piece. Well, long story short, you shouldn't use your Starbucks strings too close to your pieces, so I did have to cut out some with the little scraps I had. But we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna fold this in half. That way it's wrong sides out, and we're going to stitch all the way across to make it into like a tube. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and flip that in right sides out. I wish I would have had my little purple thing. It is actually called that purple thing. It helps me flip stuff. I'll link it below. It's a lifesaver. So I struggled a little bit on some of this with just flipping things inside out or how they're supposed to be. All right, so we're going to lay this flat, and I'm going to actually fold in one of the sides. And that way it's by a 1/4 inch to make a nice seam on that side. Because what we're going to do is we're going to fold this, not accordion, but you're going to take one piece to the center and the other piece to the center. And then the raw edge you're going to put inside that nice folded 1/4 inch part you just did. That way it lays in there really nicely. Because what we're going to do is we're going to sew this right down the center of that to be able to connect those two pieces. So we're sewing right through the middle of that. That way we can go ahead and connect, we'll close it, I guess. All right, and so we're gonna take our little middle section. We're gonna fold it in half, and we're gonna sew up the long side and then over the top. I'm giving it a little press to make sure it holds down fine, but we're gonna go ahead and sew that right up the ends and then go ahead the top too. And then we're gonna turn it right sides, or I guess, inside out. Again, this is when I wish I would have had my purple thing. All right, so now we have all of our pieces sewed. We're going to accordion style the top part of our bow. And you could do this in 5 or, I did mine in 3 sections, but you could do yours in 5 if you really wanted to add some oomph to it. But I like 3. And of course you can flip it over and figure out which side you like better, if you like this side or if you like this side where it shows more of the creases. I kind of like both. I don't know. It depends on the day for me. All right, so you could hand sew directly through the center. If you think your machine could take all of that, you can sew it by your machine. I'm going to hot glue it. I'm just going to give it a dab of hot glue. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hot glue the other sides wherever there's a little crease. And of course you can put a wonder clip in the center of it. That way you know that it's going to hold it. But I'm going to glue these 2 sides and then put my wonder clip. That way it holds all of it together. There we go. Little wonder clip to hold her all into there together. How cute is that? And of course hand sewing would be the proper way, but the hot glue gun was sitting right next to me, so she got hot glued. All right, so for our tail, same concept. You're gonna accordion her together, and I like to make sure my centers are correct, but I also like to bring down both of my tails of my bow. That way I know that they're even. You could of course leave like a longer side if you wanted a more asymmetrical long side. I kind of did that a bit, kind of on accident though. I'm going to pop some hot glue in there to go ahead and hold that too. You could sew this if you wanted to sew. I know the comments are going to be like, you should have sewn it. I'm sorry. Alrighty, so we take the wonder clip off and we can go ahead and put a little hot glue in between those to connect it. And these are just connectors because our center part's going to go on there and it's going to hold it pretty well. But this is just to give it a little more support. So we're going to take our center part. I like to put the rough edge at the bottom, and I go ahead and I tuck that in, glue it down or sew, and then I'm going to overlap that top part where we had sewn it closed, and I tuck that part in there too to give it even nicer finished edge. And this is the part where you could put in wherever you wanted to hold your bow, so on a headband or a clip, this is where you could go ahead and put that in if you wanted to. Are you guys ready to see the final result? Let's do this. 3, 2, 1. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and y'all have a good night. Bye.